Did you just buy a new house and you've got some really ugly texture, maybe like this? You want to get rid of it, but you don't really know how to use a pan and a knife that well? Well, I'm going to show you an easy way to do it. That's something most any homeowner can do, and we're going to show you that right after this. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I appreciate all of you for stopping by. We're here at that Kilted Guy videos. It's my goal to teach you guys how to do this stuff so that I can empower you to save money, take pride in your workmanship, and I'm going to show you how to do it right. That's why that's our slogan. And today what I'm going to show you is how to do an easy version of skim coating. Now I've showed you in a couple other videos how to skim coat, and usually I use a pan and a knife. In my previous video I did use a hawk and a trowel, and I demonstrated a couple different tools to use with that. Well, not all of you guys are that good at spreading mud with a pan and a knife, and I know that, so I'm going to show you an easier way to do it. While I'm showing you this video, I'm going to scroll some information across the screen here, because we also have an Amazon store and a website and so on. So if you need any of these tools or supplies, we've got links to where you can get those on Amazon. And we do make a small amount off of that, and it helps us put out more videos, so thank you. So what we're going to cover is how to do a simple version. We're just going to do it on this little simple piece here, and I'm going to show you the simplest way to get this texture gone. So step number one is, depending on your texture, you need to semi-smooth it out. So what we're doing is looking for little things like this. There's a little bump right there. So what I would do is, first I would go through, sand the entire surface, and I'd use a sand pole if you're going to be doing very much, because these get the job done quickly. You can see I'm barely pushing and it's taking off some of the high points. These are also this brand right here especially, very easy to use, and you just have to know how to use it, and that is keep this at an angle all the time. You don't want to run it like this because it can catch, flip, and gouge and do some damage. And you don't want to run it in straight lines because it can, see if I can demonstrate it, it can cut grooves in that you don't want. So try and always keep it like that, and it's not really that hard. You don't have to push really hard, and be aware that when you're sanding a painted surface, it doesn't really do a lot with the sandpaper. Sandpaper doesn't like to cut through paint, so you're just trying to hit those high points and take them off. Another way you can do it is you can take something like this 12-inch knife or even this 6-inch knife. If you're going to be doing much, I definitely get out something like a 12 and just go over it, and you can see how that's also removing high points. So let's go over this whole thing. Okay, you're not really trying to make it pretty with this, you're just trying to knock off them high points, because if you hit those with even this tool I'm going to show you, it may chatter and just makes you have to put more mud on. So that's step number one. And step number two is you need some all-purpose mud. I would recommend the lightweight mud. Most any lightweight all-purpose will work. In my area I use USG +3 like this, and the reason is, if you use the green label like this one, it tends to shrink more, it's stickier because it has more glue in it, it's better for taping, and it's harder to sand when it's done. This lightweight sands really easy. So we're going to use it pretty much straight out of the box. You can thin it down a little bit. I don't want to today, so I'm going to try using it just straight. And then you need your painting tools like this paint roller. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch nap because it'll hold more mud, and then a paint tray. Just fill it up with your mud. And by the way, when we say mud, we mean joint compound. That's our general term for it. So then you just want to load this thing up. And note that when you're loading up a paint roller, especially with this thick mud, it might take a little bit because it takes a while to get it to go into the nap. So the first few times may not roll out as well. but we just want to roll the mud on here. So we're going to load it again and just keep rolling the mud on here, getting a pretty thick layer on here. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back to you here. Okay, we have a pretty decent layer on there. You want it on there pretty thick, depending on the texture. The deeper your texture is that you're trying to cover, the more you want to put on there. But be aware that you might end up having to put 2 coats on there because you can only get it on so thick this way. That's why the knife and pan method works better for me. I can put it on plenty thick that way. So if you find that you do this and the first coat doesn't quite cover, just sand it down just enough to knock off the high points and then do it again. But here's the second step to this procedure. We're going to use this tool right here called a Magic Trowel. Now I got a link in my description down below. Basically it's kind of like a squeegee. You can see it's got a rubbery blade, but this is made especially for drywall. And if you're going to do much of this, I would definitely use one of these paint poles. Now if you can afford it, I would really go with these extendable ones because they're so much more versatile. At close range this works great, but if you need to reach a little higher, they're extendable. They're very sturdy. They're just much better than the cheap ones. I'll put a link to that in the description too. And when you're rolling that on, do not try and do that by hand without this on here. Use some kind of pole because you'll work so much harder. You've got so much less control when you do it like that. I see homeowner shows and that where they're painting without an extension pole. Not a good idea, but if you're really on a budget, I guess you could. So now we've got the mud on here. Now we just want to go over it with this trowel, and you'll need to put a decent amount of pressure because you're trying to basically pick up some of the mud and drag it over the divots that you create. And then you just go over it with a light pressure. And another tip is to keep this blade wet. Don't ever let it dry out at all. I wet it right before I did this. It works better, but it's going to leave a little bit of drag marks with these. My knife method doesn't, but so if we clean that off a little bit, usually those drag marks will lessen up a little bit. So it works pretty decent. Now you would just let this dry and sand it out, but let me show you a tip when you're going to get to that stage. And here's the tip. Oh wait, I shouldn't shine that in your eyes, should I? No, you need a bright light. Could be a flashlight. The broader the light, the better. So a shop light or some other kind of bright light would work good. Once it's dry, side light it. And when you side light a wall, it makes all of the defects come out. So first thing I would do is sand it. And to sand it, use about a 220 grit sandpaper. Don't push real hard. You might even use finer grit if you want, because this will sand really easy. And then come back over it with your side light. And if you can see on the camera, there's a divot right there. You just fix those after you got it all sanded. And if you want really smooth finish like level 5, watch my other video I'll be putting out. I'll give you tips on how to achieve that. But you do, for a really smooth finish, you'll fix those and then come back and sand those, because just putting mud on it won't leave it really smooth. I hope that helped you out. Oh, sorry. I hope that helped you out, and if you like that, if we did help you out, I hope you'll consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can do that for as little as $1 a month, and that helps us put out more videos, and we really appreciate it. But we'll see you on the next video. Either way, thanks a lot. Take care.